because the nature of 21st century fire is very different from 20th century fire because of the climate crisis. It's changed fire behavior.
Are you telling me we can't have firefighters fighting these fires? We should have like psychologists?
Disrupt America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. You may have seen the devastation going on with the wildfires, or maybe you may have smelled and seen the smoke billowing from province to province, city to city, all across Canada and even into the United States. And it has become devastating not only for people impacted directly by the wildfires, but people living just within the country. As according from CTV News, wildfires in the prairies have impact on air quality in several provinces. Poor air quality fueled by wildfires burning across the prairies left a large swath of the country enveloped in a haze again on Saturday, but Environment Canada said the situation is expected to improve over the weekend. Parts of Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, and Newfoundland and Labrador were experiencing poor air quality and reduced visibility due to the wildfires, a situation expected to continue through Sunday. Environment Canada meteorologist Jean-Philippe Biguin said there's some good news. A low-pressure system passing through the prairies currently in northern Saskatchewan and expected to move into Manitoba and northwestern Ontario by Monday is expected to bring precipitation for areas hit by out-of-control forest fires. The system is not expected to bring much relief in northern Alberta. However, there is little rain in the forecast. On Saturday, the agency's air quality index listed some cities like Toronto and Montreal as having a moderate to high risk. The index measures air quality in relation to quality of health and rates it between 1 and 10. Much of Ontario remained under special air quality statements or warnings on Saturday. Southern Ontario, which has been under an air quality statement on Thursday and Friday, saw that lifted early Saturday morning. For Quebec, a weak cold front should help matters in eastern Quebec, including the province's North Shore. The situation can improve into Sunday in Montreal and in southern Quebec. A high concentration of fine particles in the air can be harmful to health, and the air quality situation is far worse in areas from fires are burning, Begin said. In no region of Quebec do we have concentrations above 100 micrograms per cubic meter, Begin said. Near the fires in northwest Ontario, northern Manitoba, northern Saskatchewan, northern Alberta, we have in some places definitely more than 100 micrograms per cubic meter, and we have up to 600 micrograms per cubic meter, so the air quality is quite dangerous there. In Montreal, public health officials were advising residents to keep windows closed, reduce outdoor activities, and limit non-essential travel when the entire population is affected by air quality. The most vulnerable include children under the age of 5, pregnant women, the elderly, and anyone suffering from heart or respiratory issues. And I just want to say, obviously reduced air quality is harmful to people, and it's sad that people have to be trapped inside their house because of the wildfires if they have respiratory and whatnot. But isn't it kind of interesting that they're concerned about the wildfire smoke, yet we know for months on end, we know that they've been spraying chemicals into the atmosphere. And we know that there's harmful toxins and substances in the air, in the sky, as they are using chemtrails to further put these harmful toxins into our atmosphere to reduce the visibility of the sun and control the weather. This is not nothing new. This is not shocking. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's been proven, and they have stated this. People working in NASA have even reported on this. that they are working on this technology. They're trying to approve this in the UK to dim the sun for climate change reasons. So here is a map of the wildfire smoke. You can see billowing down not only across Canada, but into a lot of U.S. cities and states. Here's another example of it. You can see that there's heavy toxinogens from the wildfire into, parts of Ontario there, going down even parts of the United States into Ohio, New York, so on and so forth. Here's from Viral News HQ, stating that massive smoke plumes seen on satellite as dozens of wildfires rage across Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. As it stands now, 17,000 plus evacuated. There's a 30-day emergency in Saskatchewan, and pyrocumulus clouds signal intensity. And you can see some of the images there. So here's a bit of video to show how devastating the wildfires are in these affected areas. Seems like a common theme. Especially if you're in like BC or California area. So here, this is from AccuWeather. The sky over Manitoba and Saskatchewan turned an eerie red from wildfire smoke. Hundreds of wildfires are burning in Canada, bringing rounds of smoke and haze to millions across Canada and the United States. So here's what they have to show. This is in the northern area. This is the hardest hit. This is where a lot of indigenous communities were forced to evacuate. So here's a bit of the video here. You can see,
Look at the sky.
just complete red haze.
It's pretty wild.
This is not Mars. This is Canada. This is not Mars. I know Elon Musk probably had his heart on this, but here's Saskatchewan. You can see just the affected areas. Here's some images here of the smoke that was billowing across the country, and you might be wondering where exactly this is. You could see kind of the shape and outline, a little silhouette there. That's Toronto. That's the CN Tower. That's completely covered in these wildfire smokes. Just this deep, dark haze that sadly a lot of people in Toronto are used to poor air quality. They're used to hearing smog alerts and just pollution in that area. But nothing like this. Nothing like this. Here's some more images here. There's the skyline of Toronto. There's the smoke billowing out from a satellite view. There's school kids stuck on a highway trying to evacuate. You can see the smoke going across the highway there into prairie provinces. So what is Parliament's response on this? Because this is devastating. People are evacuating. Homes and infrastructure is burning up like crazy. You have a lot of forests. That's a lot of trees. That's, sending harmful toxins into the atmosphere, more so than with what we already have. You would think that Parliament would step into action, maybe do something about the management of the forest fires, maybe do something about investing into, water bombing technology, and investing more into firefighting. But no, they took this opportunity, just like every opportunity they do with the forest fire, and make this about a climate change issue. And you would think that, okay, maybe there's some evidence to point at the fact that it's been very dry and that's, making it more devastating for forest fires to spread. But listen to this. Listen to this. So Elizabeth May, Green Party leader Elizabeth May, had the most wackiest response to the forest fires. So as the real Mr. Bench points out, 21st century fire is very different from 20th century fires because of the climate crisis. That's according to Elizabeth May. And this is what she said when she was sober. This is sober Elizabeth May. This is not drunk. This is sober. And she's saying that the fires had advanced over time. We have 21st century fires. What the hell does that even mean? What does that even mean? So here's her response to the wildfires in the most craziest way possible.
Water bombers won't put out most of the, once a fire's out of control, but you could stop it early if you could, because the nature of 21st century fire is very different from 20th century fire because of the climate crisis. It's changed fire behavior. It's made fires.
Change the fire behavior. What? So are you telling me we can't have firefighters fighting these fires? We should have like psychologists? Maybe some social workers can go out there and, you know, help that fire move along from destruction and move on to a better life. What does that mean? What does that mean? Changing the behavior of a fire. Does flames have a mind their own? Did they decide where to burn and where to locate? This is madness. This is madness. And this is why stuff like this continues to go out of control, and the best solution they have is to tax you further on this. That, hey, if we collect more in carbon taxes, somehow it's going to make fires better. Somehow it's going to make the weather better. It's going to make the climate more efficient if you give us more money to not invest into anything good, but to collect that money for ourselves so we can get a pay raise, a pat on the back, and make these stupid-ass speeches. This is from the Green Party of Canada. This is the Environment Party. And they're talking about how advanced fires are becoming. Hear this again. Hear this again.
Water bombers won't put out most of the, once a fire's out of control, but you could stop it early if you could, because the nature of 21st century fire is very different from 20th century fire because of the climate crisis. It's changed fire behavior. It's made fires much harder to put out and much more dangerous for communities.
Oh my God. Yeah, much more dangerous for communities. You know what's even more dangerous? That time where you shut off the water. Just like you did to northern BC when they had their wildfires. Oh, we got to conserve the water for emergencies. You don't think a town burning into flames is considered an emergency? I'm glad you took the response that California did when they had their wildfires. You shut off the water to deliberately burn down the towns. Because apparently it's not enough of an emergency when cities and towns are being destroyed. It's not enough of an emergency when people are forced to evacuate, when livelihoods are destroyed. It's not enough of an emergency to give them water. But it is enough of an emergency to tax more people. It is enough of an emergency to make sure that your grocery prices continue to skyrocket because we're adding carbon taxes on top of inflation, on top of the cost of living. Just how crazy this is. So even more crazy is the aftermath of all this, because even if hypothetically, you know, let's say that, you know, the climate crisis added to this wildfire. Let's say for a second, just hypothetically it did. Climate change doesn't spark and initiate a fire. There has to be something. There has to be some sort of action that caused a flame to spark. And it turns out there were some individuals that caused this. So this is from Saskatchewan Today, or is it Saskatoon Today? Breaking. 2 people charged with setting wildfires. Individuals charged for allegedly starting fires in Smeton, Snowden area and the Ditch Fire. Huh. So How can we make this about climate change and tax more people? How do we make this into a insane policy that we can encapsulate all Canadians and mimic this idea that we're saving the planet, saving the world, without actually saving the planet or saving the world, but we can take their money? They had arsonists involved in this wildfire. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? And none of this ever gets addressed. Of course not. Of course not. Because then, if we realize that someone had to spark this fire, someone had to cause this, that climate change doesn't spark a wildfire. It's not like a sun ray came down and set ablaze. Something had to start this. If they realize it was a person, holy crap, there goes the credibility of maybe we should cancel out carbon taxes. Maybe being net zero is not a possibility. Maybe that we're destroying our country deliberately for an ulterior reason. Maybe that's the case. So this is from City News. Saskatchewan RCMP charged 2 people with starting blazes in the province, one which has forced 7,000 people to flee the area of L'Orange. Prairie wildfires developed on 2 fronts Friday as 1,000 more Manitoba residents were forced to flee their homes, and Saskatchewan RCMP charged 2 people for starting blazes. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe told a news conference that one charge relates to starting a fire near L'Orange, which has forced 7,000 people from the area to flee. The RCMP has informed us that they have now charged a couple of individuals, Moe said. An 18-year-old woman from Montreal Lake, Cree Nation, and a 36-year-old man from Pelican Narrows each face 1 count of arson, said RCMP. It's alleged that the woman set the fire in a rural area near L'Orange. The man is accused of setting fires in a ditch near the turnoff of Snowden, northeast of Prince Albert. As of Friday, Saskatchewan had 24 active wildfires, and Moe said between 10,000 and 15,000 people are out of their communities. Many, if not virtually all, of the fires that we're dealing with in Saskatchewan, although not intentionally, are human-caused. Interesting. Some of those who have been intentionally human-caused, Moe said. Later in the day, RCMP in Prince Albert said that they were investigating what's believed to have been an arson attempt at a provincial firefighting base north of the city. Police said a suspicious fire that has been reported on Thursday afternoon was extinguished with no injuries or major damage. A suspect fled the area on a bicycle, they said. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are both under a state of emergency, which makes it easier for different levels of government to coordinate a response. Manitoba has also received help from the military to evacuate residents, mainly in remote First Nations. Moe has faced calls from the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations and the opposition NDP to follow suit. Every available resource in Canada must be utilized to combat these wildfires. FSIN Chief Bobby Cameron wrote in a letter to Moe, "We cannot afford to let critical assistance go unused." The Premier said while his Saskatchewan party government is in daily contact with federal officials, provincial emergency crews have so far been able to get evacuees out. Moe said the Canadian Red Cross was also working to set up shelters for evacuees in Regina, Saskatoon, and Prince Albert. In Manitoba, the town of Snow Lake issued a mandatory evacuation order Friday due to the large wildfire threatening the area east of Flin Flon. That's a funny sounding name. Flin Flon. You must leave because of the danger to your health and safety, reads a notice on the town's Facebook page. That fire, which has grown more than 3,000 square kilometers has also forced out all 5,000 residents in the city of Fling Flong and about 1,000 more in surrounding homes and cottages. I'm sorry, but it's not, that name of the town just sounds offensive. Fling Flong. I sure, okay. With Snow Lake evacuees added in, about 19,000 were out of their homes in Manitoba. About 27 fires were burning the province, with 8 classified as out of control. So that is some revelating news, ladies and gentlemen. And here's some more revelating news from USMC Lady Vet, reminding us that a Canadian man charged with starting the Nova Scotia largest wildfires in Nova Scotia says, so the fires were not climate change at all. They were asshole related. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Well, it turns out if you do some investigating and actually start criticizing how these wildfires got initiated, you start looking into things and you start looking at the scheme, the schematics of how they're using the excuse of a wildfire to pander more into the climate change narrative to then force legislation to advance more carbon taxes, to crush down on dissent and force people into, not using gas-powered stoves, having electric lawnmowers, not having a gas-powered car, and moving towards an EV. They're doing this intentionally. Like I said, let's say, hypothetically, whether you agree or not that climate change exists, that's not what causes fires. What causes fires is some sort of initial action that causes a spark. So someone had to do this. And when you look into things, you kind of see the bigger picture here. And you kind of see the direction of where things are going. It's now the summer months. They're talking about warmer weather. Now these fires are developing. It's causing things out of control. There's lack of air quality in places like Toronto and going east into the United States. So now they can use this as the ultimate excuse of, hey, this is why we got to continue on climate policies. This is why we got to continue on carbon taxes, bleeding out Canadians dry, to somehow change the weather, but not change the habits of the top 1% that still continue to pollute the areas. They're not cutting back on their private jet travel. As this is going on, as they're demanding climate change policies, they're mowing down parts of the Amazon to put a highway to a conference hall so they can meet about climate change policies. That shows you what hypocrites they are. They trust people like Bill Gates. Bill Gates, who dropped out of college, doesn't know how to program anything, is a sinister evil villain, and his best agenda for climate change is let's not plant trees, because that's scientific. Not planting trees, which would provide oxygen. Which is why Canada, surprise, surprise, is already net zero from the amount of trees we have. We have a huge amount of forests. We have a huge amount of crops and agriculture and forests and trees that bring in the carbon and release oxygen, making it beneficial for everybody. So, hey, maybe we should have just planted more trees. Hey, maybe we should actually look to initiatives that are actually beneficial and not listen to the billionaire class that are using this for exploitive measures. And as pointed out here, if they're willing to do this, they are willing to do that. Meaning that if they're willing to burn down towns and communities, start riots for no apparent reason, they're willing to start forest fires. If it's politically motivated, if they're getting paid by some NGO or some agitator, they're willing to do this. They're willing to do whatever it takes. So be advised. Be advised to know that wildfires, riots, anything like this, it's not spontaneous. And if you look at the greater picture, if you look at the full story and the full perspective, a lot of the times, there's a lot of key details that reveal the big plan, the game plan of all this. And when that gets revealed, it kind of breaks the momentum that Parliament or government has on people to use this as an excuse to bait people into their horrendous policies.